Chapter 3 Equestrian Families United. Lyra and Bonbon cautiously entered Nurse Coldheart's office. Their boss had two vacant seating pillows waiting for them in front of her desk. Behind the head nurse were shelves full of medical books and diplomas. Coldheart did not look happy to see them. To the left of her sat Caramel, who looked distraught. I received a complaint about your unprofessional attitudes towards one of our donors, Coldheart said sternly. Caramel said you were hostile and belligerent towards him. Caramel sat there staring at the ground. Bonbon looked at him with compassion. She tried to relate to what the Stanley must be going through, but she couldn't. Lara didn't see herself in a lesbian relationship. She viewed it as having fallen in love with one of her best friends. They had known each other since the day they were foals. Her best friend has just also happened to be another mare. Finding a special sun pony was never an issue for her. She and Lyra had fallen in love with each other before either of them were old enough to know what romantic love really was. Being ostracized, sorry if I said it wrong, from certain circles because of her same gender attraction was difficult for Bonbon, but at least she had Lyra. Bonbon's mare friend didn't care what other ponies thought about them. It's only when those thoughts began to direct policies that there became an issue. If Caramel was keeping his feelings hidden from every pony, including himself, Bonbon thought, what must his life be like? Has he resigned himself to a life of loneliness? I don't need to put up with this abuse, Caramel said bitterly. I'm tempted to just stay at home and stick to online banking. They have that? Online banking. Must be weird. Lyra stared at Caramel with contempt. The stallion didn't return her gaze. He kept his head down, embarrassed. Lyra wasn't heartless. She would, of course, keep Caramel's secret. She just hated that she had to do it. No pony should be ever compelled to hide who they loved from the world. She would never do that to Bonbon. Now here Lyra sat, being reprimanded for something else, something she considered to be a non-issue. She might lose her job all because Caramel lacked the balls to be honest with himself. The unicorn wanted to tell that cowardly cuddler where he can shove his complaints. Unfortunately, for the sake of their jobs, cooler heads prevailed. Caramel, Bonbon said tenderly. The stallion raised his eyes to look at her. We're sorry for how we treated you, Bonbon said apologetically. We had no right to presume anything about your preferences. Please forgive us. It will never happen again. Caramel snorted through his nose as he tried to compose himself. All right, he said, nodding his head. I accept your apology. I'm glad we'll be able to sort things out, Coldheart said cheerfully. Please do visit us again. The stallion got up and left the room, exchanging angry looks with Lyra as he did so. The unicorn craned her neck to watch Caramel leave as the door closed behind him. I hope you default on your next payment, Lyra muttered quietly to herself as she stared at the stallion. You closeted two-face. Lyra loudly cleared her throat to get her employee's attention. Lyra remembered that she wasn't out of the woods yet. The unicorn snapped her head back around to look at her boss. In all my years as director of this cryobank co-op again, I have never had employees who displayed such brazen callousness towards donors. Such conduct is inexcusable. Lyra and Bonbon flinched, expecting to be fired on the spot. However, before their new jobs could be cut short, there was a knock at the door. A Pegasus mare with a white mane and a dark blue coat poked her head into the office. Your kitty mark was a large, intricate snowflake. Yes, Frigid Wind, Coldheart said in an icy tone. What is it? I'm in the middle of reprimanding some employees. I'm sorry, the Pegasus says urgently, but we need you right away. There are protesters outside. Damn, the Coldheart said with a heavy sigh. The nurse looked at Bon and Lyra. You two, follow me. As they left Coldheart's office, the three mares followed the Pegasus to the front doors. I want you two to see this, Coldheart said as they trotted briskly through the corridors. If you two want to continue working here, then you got to learn fast that working in a sperm bank isn't all sexual harassment jokes and filthy innuendos. We deal with very serious issues. But protesters? Bonbon asked, confused. Who would want to protest a cryobank? Maybe parents had a problem with the bank installing an ATM within 200 feet of a school? Lyra guessed. No. The protesters outside the part of a fundamentalist group known as the Equestrian Families United, Frigid Wind said in a frustrated tone. They tear down all the institutions they view as a threat to quote-unquote traditional families. Equestrian Families United? Lyra repeated. So their acronym is EFU, or FU, basically, Coldheart said as they approached the door. A small crowd of mares and stallions had congregated outside the steps of the cryobank. A few had brought their own children with them. Unicorns levitated protest signs, Pegasus wore slogans that hung around their necks on a poster board. One stallion was being hassled by a crowd as he tried to get away from the sperm bank. Poor Caramel, Bonbon said sadly as he watched the abuse. The mares had stared it out of the window as the stallion was jostled by the mob. They called Caramel names, saying he was a pervert and a paid clopper. The stallion eventually made it through the crowd and ran down the road crying. Pussy. The 3 Earth ponies stood on the steps of a cryobank facing the mob. There was a stallion with a sea blue coat. His thick mane was the color of seaweed, and his cutie mark depicted 3 ovals that formed 6 points around a small dot. It looked like a symbol for an atom. The mare had a white coat with a non-neon yellow mane. Her cutie mark consisted of 3 yellow hearts forming a Y shape. The tips of the hearts were facing each other, with a yellow dot in the center. All the images of their cutie mark had a black outline around them. It looked vaguely like a symbol for nuclear energy. The other Earth pony was a little filly who didn't have her cutie mark yet. She had a light blue coat with a curly golden yellow mane. Excuse me. Who are these firebrands? Lyra asked, gesturing towards the ponies on the steps. They will be EFU's protest organizers, Coldheart said dispassionately. Atomic Faith and his wife Radiant Hope, and now that Glowing Charity is older, the family has started including their daughter in the protest as well. Lovely, Lyra said sarcastically. The other dozen members of the cryobank staff had stopped working to look out through the large glass windows at the crowd below. As Lyra and Bonbon read the messages on the protest sign, their stomachs started to churn. They had dealt with the bigotry before, but it was never right, no matter who it was against. The protest signs of the crowd spouted inciting vitriol, with slogans such as "Cryobanks mock the death of life" and "Clop is murder." The mother and daughter... Clop is murder, really?
Of course, Clop is murder,
How
because
is
every time he clops, Celestia kills a pony.
No, don't let that be a meme.
It already is.
Every time you clop, Twilight goes to magic kindergarten.
Or Celestia kills a pony.
No! Skins a pony alive.
Seems about right.
The mother and daughter also wore poster board around their necks. Radiant Hope's sign said in big letters, "Protect the nuclear family." Below the words was an illustration of a stallion and a mare with a bull standing between them. Her daughter, Glowing Charity, had a sign with it written in thick crayon that read, "I know who my daddy is. Do you?" Nose Coldheart has seen enough. Do you? I don't know, do you? Nurse Coldheart has seen enough. Lyra and Bonbon watched as their boss stepped outside to confront the protesters. The crowd booed the nurse as she approached Atomic Faith. The blue stallion smiled as she listened to the sounds of the I can't even pronounce the name. What the fuck? Of his mob. Something mob. You better have a permit to protest here, Coldheart said, trying to solve calm. I don't appreciate ponies harassing my donors. Oh, we have the proper permits, Atomic Faith says. He pulled out some papers out of behind his wife's poster board. The stallion handed them over to Coldheart, who read them thoroughly. "This is a troubled world we live in," the stallion shouted, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "It is sad a state of affairs when you need a permit to protect the sanity of traditional families." The statement got a huge murmur of support from the crowd. Lyra and Bonbon looked over at their fellow co-workers. They shook their heads sadly. After examining the permit and finding no flaws, Coldheart handed the notarized legal document back to the stallion. "Oh, nurse," the Atomic Face said in a patronizing tone, "as long as you're out here, perhaps you would be willing to answer a few concerns these good ponies have about your business." Coldheart stood there and nodded as she would hear their questions. "I know your PR department has done a brilliant snow job on the public," Atomic Faith said, patronizingly. He approached Coldheart in the same manner as a hungry griffin approaches its dinner. When Atomic Faith got closer, he continued speaking. "Your ads focus on a happy husband and wife who have a fall through your services. You paint your business as one that follows a mare and a stallion to get pregnant when they can't do it through conventional means." Coldheart looked out into the crowd. All the eyes were on her and the blue stallion. News vans had begun arriving to cover the protest. Erin Burnett from the Caroline News Network and her crew were filming the whole thing. The nurse, following her fear, put on the most professional face as he turned her head to stare Atomic Faith in the eyes. Stallion made a cocky smile. It is a rosy business plan to be sure, Atomic Faith said, but it is not honest, is it? I'm sure I don't know what you mean, the nurse said coldly. Isn't it true that a majority of your clients are single mares, not fit to raise a child on their own? Atomic Faith said accusingly. You get any mare pregnant, provided she has the money. This sounds less like a reputable business, and more like a Las Pegasus gigolo grotto. We do a thorough background check on all of our potential parents to make sure that the child will be raised in a loving, stable environment. We're ponies, Atomic Faith said dismissively. Every home is a stable environment. The crowd laughed as Cohard started to sweat. I know at least one filly who might have disagreed with the effectiveness of your screening process, Atomic Faith said smugly. The stallion's wife leaned next to Glowing Charity to remind the filly of her cue. Dear, go get a friend from school, Radiant Hope whispered to her daughter. Lyra and Bonbon watched as Glowing Charity took off her sign and ran down to the steps to a pink unicorn filly standing in the front row. The pink pony was standing by two burly white stallions. Who is she bringing up? One of the workers asked. I don't know, Frigid Wind said. I don't recognize the filly, but the two billed stallions guarding her are the Atomic Faith's Muscle. Hard Peace and Tough Love are their names, and they provide security during the protest. As the two fillies ran upstairs, Erin Burnett whispered to her cameraman, Get some pony with a microphone up there. We can't miss this.